one. Now, it usually takes just a second to start. And I think we're 7 seconds in. Okay, welcome back. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to our lovely Thursday night live education stuff. I'm Christopher.
I'm Angela.
And if you haven't guessed by yet, our place is called the Dinosaur Omelet. Welcome back. Okay, let's go over a couple things. We're simulcasting on live and the YouTube. If you guys have any questions, put them in a comment. We get to them live or even afterwards. If you have a question about something, we'll come back and get to it in the comments after this is on, right? So we have actually neglected to do a live feed over the last 2 weeks. Last 2 weeks. Yeah. Why is that? Are we irresponsible? We went on what?
We were out of town.
Yeah, we were out of town. We went on trips, did an anniversary trip. We went to, which by the way, I put a fabulous video on the YouTube of our northern Pennsylvania trip up in the mountains. It's really pretty. So if you're bored, go watch that. And then we went up to Maine. And now we're back. I wanted to do one on the road, but we just couldn't do that. So here we are. So a little bit about, actually, what are we doing tonight? So we're talking about starting...
Pros and cons to starting poultry, chickens, and quail in the fall.
In the fall. Do people actually do that? Yes, they do. Yes, they do. And it can be beneficial if planned right. And we're going to talk about that. What are the pros and cons of starting chickens or quail in the fall, right? A little bit about us. If you're new here, hi, welcome. I'm Chris. This is Angela again. We're the Dinosaur Omelet, a small hatchery in southern Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, where we raise Coturnix quail.
The jumbo wild variety.
Coturnix quail, magnificent food animal, as well as Angela has raised a magnificent line of puppy chickens.
Yes, we have silky
chickens.
That
There's her silky chickens
have
pamphlet.
Available monthly for pets.
Yeah, so that's our two main commercial focuses. Is the
and
jumbo.
And of course their feed.
And the feed, yeah. Well, I was talking about animal-wise. Our two commercial focuses are the animal-wise. We have jumbo quail and our beautiful puffy chickens. And yes, we also produce a delicious chicken feed called My Little Dinosaur. Isn't that cute? And if you follow the links down in the YouTube, you can go to the Facebook page. That's actually a pillow. So anyway, that's a little bit about us. We've been raising these animals now for 4 years.
Yeah.
Gosh, 4 years, man. Corona came through and we switched out to raising critters. Right? And you enjoy your critters?
I do.
Actually, let me do an interview. Tell us a little bit about yourself, ma'am. Do you like raising animals? Is it a lot of work? Do you regret doing chickens?
Well, living creatures do require tending to. Food, water, taking care of their bedding, and making sure they're safe and all that. So it does take energy and time. Depending on how many you have, obviously that affects your energy you're putting forth to take care of them. I do enjoy having them. We have different types of birds. Christopher already mentioned the jumbo quail, which are awesome for having a high production of eggs, and we can have regular supply of meat in our freezer because they're just really quick to produce and grow out.
Even in the fall and winter?
Yes, even in the fall and winter, all year round, actually.
That's why we're discussing this.
Yeah, and then we have layer chickens, and we have Muscovy ducks, and we will grow offspring out for meat production as well, because they are pretty much like having sirloin steak. The meat is red, it's lean.
Yeah, I mean, these Muscovy ducks taste identical to steak.
To us, they're like our mini cows, mini beef cows, because we don't have space for a cow.
Yeah, so the whole strategizing, if you guys are doing animals and you don't have a lot of space, oh, gee, I wish I had beef production. Well, the Muscovies, they're not beef, but they taste identical to beef. So we decided to raise them, and they work out really well. And they produce a lot of meat, and they do lay eggs. Duck eggs.
And yeah, people, like to go and buy cow meat, which is awesome, good option to do, but we like raising our own food as much as we possibly can. And on a smaller type of space, all these different animals. Of course, we also have meat rabbits. All these different types of animals, including a garden, creates a lot of opportunity for us to eat different things throughout the whole year and have our
Healthy food.
yes,
Delicious
no
food.
chemicals or antibiotics. So
And
I do not regret it at all.
yeah,
I do enjoy that we have healthy meats, that we know our animals are happy and healthy, and that for me it's really important to not have chemicals and antibiotics in our foods as much as possible.
here's the deal.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work, so you're looking at return of investment. And I think, particularly in our culture, when we think of return of investment, we think what? Financial, right? What is the financial return of investment? But this is kind of incongruent with what we seek naturally, which is a state of satisfaction and quality of life. Those things may be in disequilibrium. I'm not saying money's bad. All I'm saying is that when we're looking at raising these critters, do they bring about a return of investment? And I would suggest the return that you get for the effort you're putting into this, because there's a lot of work, is not financial. It's state of mind, it's peace,
And
Okay,
quality
it's-
of food.
quality of food, and
Yeah,
the
'cause
quality of life.
It's yeah, exactly. It's not about if you're raising meat birds.
I mean, if I wanted to make a lot of money, I'd raise cocaine chickens, I guess.
It's not really about
Just kidding.
necessarily saving on cost of that food, because I'm sure, well, yeah, to make something
Well,
healthy
if you want to do economics, I'm going to get into that.
is definitely more than something where there's corners are cut and food quality is taken out of the equation and the animals are being fed cheap stuff and it's
There's
not
all
good for
those,
them.
yeah.
So yeah, so again,
This
yeah,
goes
the
back to the
financials.
whole why are you doing something?
Yeah.
Because if you want to justify what you're doing, you have to have a strong enough why that leads to that answer. Like,
Yeah.
is it justifiable for me to raise the animals? Yes. For somebody else, the answer is no. I'm like, well, I'm putting X amount of hours, man labor hours, into producing this much food. That return is not justified for that person. But for me, it is, because again, there's quality of life. And that's the whole thing with the homestead people. If you guys are homestead watchers, it's the quality of life, it's the community, it's your family. It's not so much even tangible things, it's these more emotional, philosophical positions that are satisfied when we engage in these activities. So do pursue that. It's a lot of work. That's a lot of rambling to open up about like what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So. But this is these things we do here on these lives, these YouTube and the Facebook. They're longer form, and hopefully they're useful for you guys. That's why we highly encourage you to leave questions. We're a small channel, so we can actually get to you rather than having a whole bunch of stream of comments coming up that nobody can answer. Because we like to focus on education. Hey, Steve, thanks, man. Yeah.
Yeah, Steve says I absolutely agree.
Yeah, well, appreciate it. That's the whole point of this mindset. It's totally different. It's a subculture, and I don't think a lot of people. This is my opinion. I don't think a lot of people who start in their homestead or even been doing it for a while have taken the time to cognitively position themselves or like understand what they're doing or why they're doing it, like that deeper drive and that where that return of investment comes from. Because I'm keeping it in my head. I'm cognizant. I'm digging in the freezing mud and walking around in chicken crap in this horrible weather. Most people are miserable doing this, but I'm not. Why? Because I position in my head the return of investment and the effort putting into it comes back to me. And it's a whole lifestyle thing.
Yeah, lifestyle thing. I love being outside, and I think you do too.
I hate being indoors.
Yeah.
I don't like being inside at all.
And a big part of self-sufficiency and homesteading, that sort of thing, is figuring out numbers and stuff, like what's working for you and your family. How many animals do you really need to produce what you want to do? It's so easy to overpopulate certain animals and then or think like, oh, what's another goat or two, but it could seriously affect workload and tending to them if your numbers are like higher than they need to be. So for me, I'm always aware of what are the numbers of each animal that we have and keeping them where they need to be to reach our goals, so that it's not we're not feeding a lot of extra animals. We're taking care of extra animals. So.
Yeah. Steve said
What
something,
he said?
and I think he said, no, something went wrong. He said something about, farmers and community. Yeah, community farmers and gardeners share and care.
Yeah.
Right. It's definitely a sense of community. And I always encourage you guys to reach out to your local community. Meet people. You'll be happy. We're social animals. We like to know other human beings.
Sure.
So I guess that was a little bit of a long introduction about that. But that's important stuff. And going into the fall, what we're going to be talking about can become demoralizing when we're like, oh gosh, it's rainy, it's dreary, it's cold, and people get this seasonal affective disorder. You know, we get a little depressed with the lack of sunlight. I get it severely. I got to keep doing stuff. But the lack of sunlight, you start getting this maybe depressive effects. So it can become demoralizing when you're walking out there getting ready to do your animal chores and it's getting dark so early, it's staying dark so late, and it's cold, maybe you don't like that.
Or maybe
so the cognitive...
the time slot where you're able to take care of your critters, it's already dark.
Yeah, the mindset is absolutely important. So moving on to the meat of this whole discussion tonight. So I was thinking, and again, we've been gone for 2 weeks, not like being irresponsible. We took anniversary vacation and did a work trip. So talking about the fall, transitioning into fall. So a lot of people, this is the shutdown time of year. And sure, I mean, it's not reproduction season. It's not really vegetable growing season. Maybe the fall vegetables, yeah. But, and then too, like we're getting a little burnt out from all the summer work. You know, the sun's coming up at 5 and it goes down at 9 o'clock. And I don't know, I mean, I'm out there till 9 o'clock a lot of times. And then she forces me to have fires till like 11.
I love the campfires.
11 o'clock at night. So we don't watch a TV, I watch logs burn. So I'm out there all day. But anyway, so you get a little burned out. And this time of year, it's not, we're not thinking, oh, you know what? I'm going to start more chickens. But it can be quite beneficial. There are pros and there are cons. And that's what we're going to discuss. It's not a huge topic.
Yeah,
or it's not a very lengthy topic. But there are points to consider.
For people who are thinking about starting in the fall, these could be people who maybe they're completely new to chickens and they're thinking like, well, maybe I want to get started and I don't know that I want to wait until spring, so I'm considering it now. Could be people who are thinking of adding to their flock. Maybe they have an older flock and they want to add to their numbers, get some younger birds in there. Or perhaps you had a predator issue and maybe you lost your flock and you want to replace them, that sort of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to start out with I want to do positives, okay? I'm not going to talk about, I'm out of my printer ink, so I'm using an iPad today. I'm going to talk about the positives first before going into the negatives, because I don't want to make people sad. So there are a lot of positives to starting in the fall, particularly with chickens. We're going to talk about chickens and quail. All right. You can talk about the chicks and the time they go outside. But I want to, the important thing to think about with chickens is their growth cycle, right? Their maturity rate and how long it takes them to mature, which is usually, several months?
To lay their first eggs, it's like anywhere from 5 to 7 months.
So the fall, and I'm sure if you have chickens, maybe you're one of these people or your friends do this, you go out and you buy chicks, right? Or young birds in the early spring. And everybody gets excited, especially new chicken people.
Now they're getting mature.
Yeah, if you are new to chickens, listen. So you're getting excited in the spring, you buy chickens, and you're like, oh, we're going to have so many eggs. You have no eggs because they're growing that whole season, right? In spring to summer. And they're finally starting to lay, I guess, late August, September-ish.
Yeah, September. Yeah.
So,
October.
And then... Of course, the lighting changes and you have to do supplemental lighting. So if you're starting in the fall with your chickens, they're going to be at a closer to maturity or egg-laying maturity anyway when that springtime hits. Yes? Yeah. So that, I think, is a major benefit to starting your chickens, as well as a bunch of other things.
If you're starting with chicks.
Yes. Now, when can we put chicks out? That's a huge question people are always asking. When can I put my chicks out? I have baby chickens or baby quail, and it's getting into fall. So when can I put them out? And we go by what, temperature?
Yeah. And yeah, well, so chicken chicks, they of course take longer than quail to grow. What you're thinking about really is the nighttime temperatures. And so the chicken chicks, if it's warm still, if it's summer or end of summer, usually they can go out pretty early as long as they're safe. But fall isn't too terrible yet.
How old should they be about?
Um,
It kind of varies. 'Cause
yeah,
it does
the
vary.
nighttime temperature is what you're looking at. I would say don't quote me on this.
No, I put all these disclaimers on there. We're not
Yeah, we're
veterinarians.
not vets. But yeah, as long as the nighttime temperatures, like right now, they're around like 60s and 50s. It's the very beginning of fall.
Yeah.
And if your chicks are like, are you saying they're day olds now? Like they're just little peeps
Well,
now?
I just ordered peeps. I'm starting fresh. I want to cycle out my old hens. They're going to be aged out by springtime.
Yeah.
So I want to cycle in new hens. So I just bought a big box of chicks.
Chicks, yeah.
I mean, most people in this situation probably have the education by this point if they've already had them. But let's just say I'm totally new.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I got little peeps. And they're cute.
Mm-hmm.
I can say, I'm taking them out of the brooder and it's starting to get cold at night. Let's say it's getting down to, 40s, high 30s.
Well, right. So, because let's say October, the whole month of October, they'll be 4 weeks old by the end of there. And then the temperatures are going to be getting pretty chilly at the end of October. So,
for our area.
Yeah, we're in Pennsylvania.
We're in a middle latitude here in Pennsylvania, yes.
Their feathers is what's going to keep them warmer. And the older they get, the more kind of padding they get because they're going to get some like muscle meats and stuff in there. So yeah, probably around like 7 weeks is where you're thinking.
So almost 2 months.
With fall, yeah, winter time, it's can be tricky. Maybe even like 8-9 weeks. It depends on the breed, and it may be that the daytime temperatures are comfortable enough for them because their feathers are keeping them warm. But maybe the nighttime temperatures are just too chilly, so you might just end up needing to supplement heat at night. And just make sure that your coop, your shelter is insulated well enough.
Right. So yeah, absolutely. You don't want them getting a chill. You don't want the animals getting cold shock.
And during the summertime, obviously, when it's warm, they can go out much earlier. And then the quail, they're much faster with their development. They grow meat on them much faster. So at 3 weeks old, they're really like squishy with padding, and they're feathered out really well. If the nighttime temperatures are around 40 degrees, they're not dropping below 40. They can go out at 3 weeks. And if they're below 40 degrees, then just wait till they're 4 weeks.
So why would I start with quail in the fall? Because they have such a rapid growth rate. Good question, invisible person. The reason it might be smart to start in the fall, seriously, is the stock is very limited because people go crazy for the quail in the spring. From all these companies, you can shop around. And there's usually a backlog, especially with eggs. You're ordering eggs or something to hatch because you want your chicks. And you might be waiting quite a bit of time. So if that's an issue, you may want to think about doing it earlier in the fall time. And the quail and the chickens, they're going to lay. The mature birds will lay as long as they have adequate supplemental lighting, right? 16 hours.
Yeah, 14 to 18 hours a day. So you're going to need to have like some sort of light in there on a light timer to kick on. So it's total light hours in a day.
Well, that's part of my negatives I'm going to talk about. All right, so in very short version of this, chickens are, the time to put them out into the environment, into the outside air is going to be a little longer. So they have their feathering as opposed to the spring where they're a little more, the air is warmer.
If you're new to chickens completely and maybe you're buying young adults that are pullets, they're really close to laying, not quite. And you just don't know, like, are they safe to be outside in the cold temperature? Yes, they are. If they are fully feathered, they are equipped to be outside, even in the wintertime. They can handle that fine. So rest assured, they will be okay going outside.
That's a good point. So when I was doing my research for today's lesson, I it dawned on me, there's going to be less disease exposure, and that's true. In the fall, winter, you're not going to have as many organisms in the area. There's always going to be pathogens. There's always, there's bacteria, there's a virus everywhere, right? But your new chickens, not suggesting that the area you're putting them in is dangerous, but in the winter, you're going to have probably lower exposure because everything's cold, right? It's not growing. Yet, the chickens are still going to have exposure to the local fauna or the pathogens in the dirt, but not at such a high load that they could become ill. They're not going to get an infectious dose of these pathogens in the winter. Not saying that 100%, but yes, that is the case. You're having less contamination from organisms that could potentially make an animal sick if they overwhelm them, but because they're in a lower concentration in these colder temperatures, they actually acclimate to them. So in the spring, when the water comes and the heat comes, they're not going to be as susceptible to an illness. I'm not saying so that's not going to happen like all the time, but that is something to think about. That is an issue, and that is something that is legitimate to consider.
Yeah, so the parasites and bacterias and little critters aren't as, high in numbers when the temperatures are colder.
However, there's a caveat to this. You guys raising animals in the winter, if you're new to this, you may think, oh, I got to insulate and stuff my chicken coop real tight, and then there's no ventilation where disease will breed. You got to have good ventilation in your wintertime coops, yet have a windbreak and make sure it can still keep them warm. All right. Give ample time to accumulate. Let me see what else we're talking about here. So we're talking about the immune system, strengthening the immune system because of the lack of critters, less disease exposure. The time it takes to put them out, that's kind of a negative, I guess. They can be in the house a little longer.
Yeah.
But establishing a flock before egg season or springtime, so you're not waiting in that springtime. Especially
then that way, because they're going to be producing, even with added light, when the temperatures are warmer and the natural daylight is longer, they do produce at higher quantity of eggs. They're just laying more. And they'll still lay in the wintertime with the light, but the numbers aren't quite the same. So if you want to have them, if you get them chicks in the beginning of spring, and then they're growing the whole summertime, and then they start laying in the fall, you kind of potentially are missing that, that first summertime of high production.
Yeah.
So if you're starting in the fall, they're mature, ready for laying, springtime, and you're getting a ton of eggs.
Let's see, September, October, November, December, January, February. So coming into February, March, they should be laying. They're 6 months old. Now, what's good too is you can have a pretty steady stream of eggs in the winter if you're using quail, because they grow so rapidly. They're laying eggs at 8 weeks. Regularly steady. They start at 6 weeks, but they're laying steady at 8 weeks. So if you're starting your quail in September, October, by November, you're gonna start producing eggs. It's a different bird, requires a little bit of a different setup, but it is an option. And I think those are actually really probably better for starting in fall because of that fact that they grow so quick. And then you do have eggs in the winter. And both of these creatures are going to lay even in the very, very cold temperatures, as long as that light's there.
Yeah, and then also throughout the year, the temperature and behavior of the birds do require adjustment in their feed intake. So when it's super hot, when it's warm, the birds, they're not moving around so much. They're more thinking about focusing on staying cool. They'll be in the shaded areas and not overly moving around. So they may eat a little less. So you just adjust their feed if you give them a certain amount, and they'll drink more water. But in the colder months, their bodies are working now to stay warm, which is natural, and they're going to be burning more calories. And doing that will pull from that energy supply that they were using to produce their eggs. So their egg count may drop if you aren't increasing their feed in the wintertime, the cold months.
I was
So-
going to mention that one later.
Oh, well, I just wanted to
Okay.
mention that
Yeah,
chickens can definitely produce a good amount of eggs in the cold temperatures, but some people run
Yeah,
into.
that's happening whether you're starting them in the fall
Yeah.
or if you already have birds. They're going to be obviously eating more in the winter.
Yeah,
Do you know what the percentage is?
I don't.
Have you been tracking?
No.
Is it, all right, well, that's okay. So
It depends
winter,
on the breed and how much
here's
you
a
have.
big pro to starting in the fall or the winter. Even if you don't have the birds, you can get equipment because of the discounts at the off season. You're going to find stuff being sometimes brand new stuff being cycled out for a new product in the box stores or online. People getting rid of their setups. Maybe they're doing something else and it's the end of season. So this is actually a very good time to start that shopping because you can find some significant deals on things,
Yeah.
you know, and availability. In the springtime, you may have a glut, you know, there may not be availability of certain stuff because of the rush.
Mm-hmm.
People start doing the rush in, like, I guess, February, really.
Yeah, they're starting to look at their planning. figure things
January,
out.
February. Yeah, so you do find off-season discounts, supplier stuff.
And with just people like Christopher mentioned who are maybe they're phasing some supplies out, or maybe they're just like changing what they're doing in life. But also, people don't really like to have to store supplies and unused supplies that they are no longer, or for like furniture and cages and stuff, when they don't want it anymore. So wintertime is more like people just want to get it, move it out. Summertime isn't so bad because you can leave things more outside, but so yeah, you might find things like on the Facebook Marketplace or on the farmer groups on the Facebook.
Or keep your eyes open because people have the free junk at the end of the driveway sales. They put good stuff at the end of the driveway
Yeah.
that can really be repurposed for your critters. Didn't you get a couple of pads for the
I did.
chicken coop just from the end of the driveway? You know,
Yeah.
$50 pads, $60
Yeah.
rubber pads for cheap, for free.
Yeah.
So keep an eye out for that in the fall. Okay, cool. So those are some of the positives with starting birds in the fall. I think the main issue with the whole fall is what we're about to talk about is the cold temperatures. People are apprehensive about the cold temperatures, which makes sense. Who wants to play with cold temperatures?
I just weather too. Just think about the weather. Sorry. There's going to be less rain. Yes, there's still rain, but
Dry.
the hot, humid days. If you're in our type of climate, is more summer, spring. So fall, winter, it's gonna be drier and not super hot and muggy. So that will affect maybe your management of the pen that your birds are in if they're on the ground. And it, like Christopher already mentioned, like pathogens and such, that whole risk would be lower. But I think that is actually a pro. And also, if maybe you're still figuring out with the management of your bedding and such, maybe, smells and such are less when it's not muggy and hot.
Yeah, if you have a big, let's say you live closer to a snow-prone area where you get a lot of snow, you're going to be shoveling out coops so the animals can meander about.
Yeah, they don't like really walking
So in the
snow.
winter, you should shovel out a little path so the critters can
shovel an area and put some bedding on the ground so they're not standing on that
enjoy their
frozen
spot.
ground.
So colder temperatures, and obviously we do have freezing days, right? So the water is going to freeze unless you have a thawing unit in
Some
the
sort of heater.
de-icer or a thawer.
And you will want to be proactive and get if you can, your heating, so your water thawing device available, ready, and set up before
Before it gets
winter. Because this is something now, people who need them are going to be buying them. So, there's a demand for that. So, and you don't want to you don't want to end up having a freeze and then maybe your waters crack, or it's just, you prepare and then makes less stress and everybody's happier, including your animals.
Yeah, so the freezing water, I mean, we're going to redo our freezers apparently, our waterers.
Yeah, for our quail.
So we're going to redo our waterers. And when I say we, I say I.
He's the handyman.
Handyman. So I'm going to redo our waterers this year. Maybe I should do a video about that.
Yeah, I think you should.
Yeah, I think I shall.
Yeah.
We're going to do a bucket system, a little different. Anywho, so yeah, the cold temperature, you're going to have to monitor the water and keep it from freezing. You may see that as a negative, and people may say, well, I don't want to do fall or winter because of the freezing temperatures. And that might be an issue, especially further north. You're dealing with colder climates. I mean, even here in the state of Pennsylvania, you just drive an hour north and it's significantly colder.
It's more mountainous.
We have very mountainy area, so we have different climates and microclimates everywhere. Okay, shorter daylight, did we discuss that? Yeah, so the shorter daylight issue is both logistical, where you have to wake up and do things and get things done, and biological, where the animals need supplemental light for egg laying, if they're of egg laying age.
Yeah. Yep, the light affects their hormones.
Particularly the quail. I mean, the chickens are going to be growing. If you're getting chicks, they're growing in this season, but the quail will be mature at 8 weeks for egg laying. So you should probably keep them on supplemental light the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you're getting mature chickens, some people like to just skip the whole chick phase, and they like to get pullets or laying hens right away.
What is a pullet? That's a chicken term.
So a pullet is a
They probably
close to laying age for a hen, for a female chicken.
getting ready to lay eggs.
Yeah, and then the male equivalent is a cockerel. He's he's not quite mature yet.
Okay. Just chicken terms.
Yeah, and if you're getting chicks straight run, that just means they're unsexed, so you do not know what you're getting. Yeah. What was I going to say?
You were saying if you start out with a full grown.
Yeah, so then you want to have lights set up for them so that they're laying. You're going to want to add more bedding to your coop, the shelter area, just to help, with keeping it warmer.
I have one too. I should have thought of this when I was writing this little outline. Another issue in fall that we don't think about, but I always mention, is predators. New predator problems and new predators coming around. In the fall you get the mice in the basement. It's like, oh, we want to be warm again. Well, they got the big mice outside, the raccoons and the possums. And they're hungry and everything's brown and everything's no longer growing. So they start moving around and doing different patterns because they still like being alive. And so you have predators coming. So you may have new predator issues to contend with. But we always talk about this. Make sure the coop is predator proof. I mean, have we ever had a predator get in there? I don't think so.
No.
Not even a snake.
No.
Or a rat. So the things are predator proof, so we don't have to deal with that. But in the fall, they're definitely there, snorting around, right? We've seen them get into the food and push the food over or something outside. So in the fall, predators are a concern. I mean, they're a concern year round. But in the fall, their behavior patterns change, and they're going to start coming around more prevalently, looking for snacks in the form of your chickens and quail.
So it's a good time to, if you have an existing coop and run, to go around and just check the integrity of the structure, push on wood walls or siding and such, see if there's anything's rotting or giving way, because animals are diligent, and when they know there's something on the other side of a barrier, they're going to do whatever they can to get to it. So even a raccoon with their little fingers, they can do a good bit of damage. And then of course there's coyotes and foxes, and then also think about the type of wires you have. Like chicken wire the whole size is big enough for rats, snakes, minks.
People when they're building them who aren't experienced think chicken wire is going to be great for their chicken house.
Yeah, and unfortunately, raccoons, lots of animals can actually bite through chicken wire. So think about what you have, for your structure.
Makes
and your
sense.
Safety.
Makes sense. Okay. Now, let me brainstorm. What has happened here in the winter or fall that we had to deal with that I'm not thinking about? Something has come up. And I do know, like, with the coops, like keeping your coops clean. Oh God, the worst thing to deal with. Speaking of freezing temperatures, is scraping chicken crap.
Manure, frozen manure.
Frozen solid out of the chicken house. So we have a droppings board in the coop. Gosh. They have their roosts, and underneath the roost there's a board. And it's a little slanted.
With a lip.
So they go to the bathroom on the board, and I scrape that out. So it keeps the coop clean.
Yeah,
but
it doesn't
in
go into the
winter, it becomes, when it's frozen, not a fun chore to do. And I'm like using an ice pick. It's not fun. So that is something that comes up for us.
Something I think of is failing water heaters. Whatever. So I'm just a big fan of buy more than one. Buy at least an extra heater source, because they just fail.
Yeah.
And they get tired after a couple years, like technology these days. So I do recommend having a spare heat source for your water. And also consider the size of your flocks and make adjustments if you want to adjust the numbers. Just think about, like, how can you make your workload easier? Do you have extra animals, extra birds that you might want to sell or process for meat, just to prepare for winter? And that's not really, that doesn't go with the topic, but that's just care and your workload.
I can't, I just thought, it dawned on me, when you're bringing chickens in the fall, they're going to acclimate to the other birds. By the time spring rolls around, they're going to know each other. You're not going to have that stress time.
Yeah, they don't take too long to get to know each other.
I'm just thinking of stuff. I'm just coming up.
No, that's good. That's good.
That's off the top of my head. Because like I said, this is a short one. I think we covered pretty much everything.
Well, and then also think about snow. If you have snow or ice, just think in your mind your chores and how you care for your route and where you walk to take care of your birds. Imagine snow or ice there, if that is something that would be an issue. Maybe having some salt on hand, having extra bedding. Is there any kind of issue with how maybe a structure opens or closes in freezing weather, or being a barrier of snow against it, or even the integrity of your roof? Can it handle, a load of snow? That sort of thing.
Hopefully it does.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's working. Yeah, not difficult stuff. It's okay to start in the fall, like this whole thing tonight. It's okay to start with birds in the fall. There's challenges associated with it. There's challenges in the spring.
Yeah.
There's benefits in the fall to starting in fall. There's benefits to doing the spring. Like anything else.
There's pros and cons to everything.
It depends on what your goal is, what, your personal needs, wants, desires, and objectives. That's all. And that's about like anything else that you're doing.
The biggest thing is if you're starting with chicks, in the fall, you'll have to keep them in the brooder longer before you can take them outside due to the cold. And
just look online. Like, when can I put out my blank?
It depends on the breed.
Bird.
Yeah.
And you can find that information.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you. You can go out at this time. Because like I was saying, in age is it's going to depend on temperature.
Silkies, they're slower growing. They're miniature. They're mini bantam breed. They take longer to go out into the same cold temperature as like a larger dual purpose, maybe like a black Australorp. They can go out a little sooner. So it does depend on the breed. But
I think that does it. All right, key recap of everything. Proper coop setup. We didn't really discuss that too much, but make sure your coops are well insulated, ventilated. Ventilation to prevent stagnant air and the buildup of bacteria and other organisms.
And ammonia.
Yeah, so make sure it's ventilated.
But make sure it's not drafty. So ventilation provides the proper airflow for the health of your bird and the environment that they're in. They're not breathing in damp, ammonia, bacteria-filled air because they're exhaling water.
Yeah.
And then draftiness, that's going to create more difficulty for them managing their body heat and body temperature. Could actually chill them.
Speaking of which, kind of.
So there's a difference between ventilation and draftiness. You don't want it to be drafty.
The old question, should I put a heater in my chicken coop? Should I put a heater in my chicken coop? So for the full-grown chickens, no. And one of the problems with that is the stress, the temperature stress. So they're coming in from their nice, warm, tropical chicken house to the
cold
20-degree outdoor temperature. That's going to stress them out. And that
birds are prone to respiratory illness, and that's like, it's not like catching a cold. Like a lot of times it's winter time when that's happening.
Now somebody's going to see me say this and be like, this idiot doesn't know what he's talking about. I put lights and heat in my chicken coop every winter. They're my babies and all that stuff. And that's great. They did not get sick yet. Okay.
Yeah.
They did not get stressed from that kind of temperature change. But that is, it's possible.
They're fully capable. They're equipped with their feathers to keep themselves warm. Again, increase the amount of feed that they have. So then also maybe adding some more corn, their protein, so that they can add a layer of fat for the winter season. But they will puff their feathers out. And what that's doing is it's creating this space between the feather and skin where the heat from their body will insulate. They'll be insulated with the warmth.
I should do a whole video on this.
If you have one of those heat guns that you can read temperature, and you look at a bird, you're only going to see them losing heat from their face and their feet. They're very well equipped to handle the cold, and they know how to take care of themselves in that sense.
Yeah.
So they don't need extra heat in the coop. The only thing would be if they're juveniles and they're not quite ready to be outside, night temperatures that they're fine during the daytime, that would be the only time you might think about it.
And this isn't fall. I guess we're talking about winter a lot here too, but they kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah.
So the other winter issue is frostbite, preventing frostbite, like on the chicken comb.
Yeah. For breeds
and
that
feet.
have the big combs, and the roosters in particular, or the leghorn hens with the long combs.
So how do they get frostbite? So we want to prevent it.
It's just too
much
cold.
exposure.
Yeah, to harsh winds. It's when it similar.
It's
to
not
people.
uncommon to see that, I guess.
Yeah, and in those situations,
especially in the colder areas.
Definitely create windbreaks for the winter. They will definitely shelter in those areas because that wind is it's very harsh.
Yeah, you see, the chickens, they're not that bright and they don't have opposable thumbs, so they're not building their own windbreaks. So the chickens will they'll retreat to the underneath of the coop because they're used to doing that.
If you have that space.
Yeah, which we do, but they don't realize, it's still windy here.
Yeah.
And they're getting wind. But so I just put like 1 or 2 boards up under there in the cold
winter time. Yeah, you could use anything. You could use a straw bale. You could use plastic. But
underside of the hutch or the coop to give them a windbreak on those very cold days.
And if it's super, super cold, like this last winter, we had some. It was under 20. I think it was really cold.
Bad. We had a couple sub-freezes. It was like a week or two of.
So in those situations,
32.
For chickens, consider letting them out for not as long in the super cold. And I'm talking about dangerous temperatures. Which you could do just Google about that. There's lots of information online about that, but it's not typical. But those situations you'll consider not letting them out as long. Maybe having some food and water in their coops, just for those times. I don't really recommend always having food and water in a coop because then they're gonna be eating and drinking in there and creating more manure in their sleeping in the closed-in area.
That's the other issue too. In the less light, as it gets darker earlier, they're going in their coop, and then they're going to the bathroom in there more. They're using their coop as a bathroom for 15 hours as opposed to 6 hours.
Yeah, and
8 hours.
If you have any breeds, roosters or hens that do have the really the big combs. Consider maybe even bringing them in if that's an option into a sheltered area for those super cold. If we encounter super cold temperatures, then that way they won't have the risk of the frostbite on their comb.
Yeah, but guys, like as far as the quail go, I keep looking back here. We talk about that in that little PDF at the bottom of this description of this video. There's a whole bunch of links to this stuff to walk you through that, at least for the quail. I didn't write a whole chicken pamphlet,
The quail are
But
actually
they're
much easier with
Yeah.
they handle the temperatures and very well, and then they also
Yeah, they don't have the combs.
you don't have to worry about draftiness. Like they just need a windbreak and shelter, obviously, but they're not as sensitive to temperature fluctuations quite.
I've never had a problem in the winter with the quail. Like,
Yeah.
no health issues. I think the only time we had a problem with the quail was not the quail. We covered up their cage because it was super cold, remember?
Mm-hmm.
And there wasn't enough ventilation, so it got really wet. So I had to clean
them
everything.
breathing.
Just from them breathing, so I had to clean everything out because they produce so much heat.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't get cold. Again, I'm going to leave it with that. Like the chickens, the birds, they have the structure to keep them warm. As long as they have a coop and they can retreat to it, they huddle together.
Shelter from the
And their
elements.
feathers are magnificently designed to keep them warm. I mean, you got penguins sitting around there all day. Although they kind of like huddle
They do
together.
head over there and
They
really
huddle.
harsh.
Bad example. But they do well as long as you have the proper setup. So starting in the fall, chickens, easy, safe, fun, good, productive, positive. There's no real big issue with it. These things we mentioned, we stretched it out for 45 minutes talking about this stuff. But yeah, starting in the fall with chickens and quail, there's really not a big issue other than the issues that are extremely self-evident, the time, the temperature, and the daylight issue. And it really depends on what your goals are and how you want to invest and what you want to have happening at your place. You know, this is not rocket science, it's chicken science. It's not even chicken science. Okay, is that about it?
I think so.
I think we wrapped everything up.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So I guess thanks for stopping in. Sorry we were gone for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Well, that's how it goes. Check out our other educational videos if you guys are new. And if you have a suggestion for something, please let us know because I do a lot of research. I mean, a lot of this stuff, we do it hands-on all the time, but I like to keep notes so we're not fumbling over words. But sometimes I'll do research on a specific topic, so I have a little bit more information.
But yeah, if you have questions or comments, please put them in there, and we'll get them taken care of and let you know what's going on. If you are new to our YouTube channel, by the way, feel free to like the video, subscribe to stay in touch with what we're doing.
Yeah, man, it's a small community. We're doing special stuff, and by we, I mean you guys, us, like all these homesteader dudes. We're doing special stuff, all of us, raising our own food. I go nuts about this. Everything out there is toxic and giving us all kinds of diseases. We want to raise it at home or at least buy what's safe to eat. Isn't that nuts? You got to say, I want to buy food that's safe because you know the food you eat is dangerous. It's insane to me.
That is, yeah.
It's so crazy. It's the world we live in. What is it? Buyer beware. Caveat emptor. Is that what it is? The Latin. Anyway, buyer beware. Do your research, your education. And I guess we'll see you guys next time. All right?
Have a great night or
blabbing.
day.
Oh, Jeff came in. Hey, Jeff, we're signing out. Thanks for coming in then.
See ya, everybody.
See you guys. We'll